Hello and welcome to the Chapter 5 Objectives and Terms. In Chapter 5, we're talking about the providences of God. And so we will look at some objective questions. That's all of the objective questions. Let me put those back up for you so that you can get your objective notebook up to date. So as you can see, we'll be talking about providences, the two types, and what they mean to us. Pause the video here if you're still getting caught up in your objective notebook before we start terms. There are several terms that we need to know. And of course, the first one is providences. We're going to define that term, which is God's ordering all issues and events after the counsel of His will to His own glory. And so there's about four parts to that if you look at that. It's the fact that God is in charge of everything that happens in my life after His own will and for His glory. So remember, everything's still about God, and God is in charge of everything. When it comes to God's providences, there's two kinds, and you'll read about this more in your chapter. But there's God's mercy, which we're going to define for the purposes of this chapter as not getting what we deserve or being spared from consequences. And again, this is after the counsel of His will, and so He knows when it's best to spare us from the consequences of our behavior. And the other providence is judgment, getting exactly what we deserve or suffering the consequences. And you've experienced this in your own life. Sometimes you expected punishment from perhaps a parent or a teacher, an authority of some kind, and you were spared. And other times, maybe you were hoping for mercy, but you got exactly what you deserved. You received judgment. And God works in those same ways. But again, it's after the counsel of His own will and for His glory. And so we can know that it's for what is best for us. When it comes to meditating on the providences, there's some terms that we talk about in the chapter that we want to just define here so that it's easier for us to wrap our minds around. The first one is search backward. As we think about God's providence, we need to look back at the events and circumstances of our past to notice God's mercy and judgment. And so looking back and noticing times when God has been merciful or when God has given us judgment and what that teaches us about God and how that can bring glory to Him. Another activity involved in meditating upon the providences of God is to sink deeply, which is to just simply allow our thoughts to go more deeply than normal through continued meditation. We've talked before about how meditation is not practiced very often because we simply are so distracted in our culture today. And so willfully allowing our thoughts to go more deeply or to think more deeply about things than that surface level that we usually are at, kind of like I don't know, a butterfly on a flower. We like hover and touch down briefly and then jump to the next thought. But when we meditate on God's providences, we need to go a little bit deeper and look again and again and think over and over about the things that God has done in our lives, even those things that seem meaningless, asking ourselves, what is it that God would have me to learn or know about Him as a result of that situation? The other aspect of providences that we're looking at in this chapter is the idea of recording them. To record God's providences means to journal everything that God has done in your life. Those moments when you recognize that God has done something, write it down and keep it in your memory. Keep it in a place that will help you to remember the things that God has done. As we talk about providences, the fact that God is ordering all issues and events after the counsel of His will to His own glory, we need to talk about the opposite of providence, or the opposite of the fact that God is involved in every situation of my life. The opposite of providence is luck. Some people believe in luck, which is success or failure brought about by chance rather than anything that you can do. Just a lucky shot, a lucky guess, a lucky, event, the right time at the right place. It's hard if we truly believe in God and who He is and the fact that He is ordering all issues and events after the counsel of His will. It's hard to believe in luck. As a matter of fact, luck does not play a role in a biblical worldview or in a biblical mindset. We cannot accept that. If we're accepting the biblical teaching about God and the fact that He is involved in every issue of our life because of His glory and His will. Kind of cousin to luck is fate, and that is the idea that events are beyond a person's control. It's our destiny. Things are determined by a supernatural power or force. By supernatural power, there we're not talking necessarily about God. We're talking about maybe the force of good, or maybe sometimes the idea of karma comes into this, predestination or destiny, the fact that no matter what we choose to do, some things are going to happen. And although this idea is based on the fact that there is a being, a force in charge, a lot of times it misses the identity of that force, and that is a loving personal God as he's revealed himself in his word. And so a lot of times fate is not an appropriate way to describe the events of our lives, when it would be better to describe them in terms of providence, the fact that God is ordering all the issues and events of our lives after the counsel of his will and for his own glory. All right, those are the terms for this chapter. As always, if you have any questions, make sure you bring them to our next class period, and we will continue working with these concepts. Thank you.